Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with Don Campbell. Don, thanks so much for being with me here today.
That's great to be here. Thanks.
I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction.
Uh-oh.
So I have known Don for, I'm going to say like maybe 10 or 12 years. I started real estate investing as a college student and read your book, Real Estate Investing in Canada. And this really shaped for me kind of years now buying real estate. And it's really great to talk to you here today. You have 7 best-selling books.
7.
And you've donated 100% of the proceeds to Habitat Humanity, which is now over $1.3 million.
It was an interesting project for sure. And, when you get the right message to the right market, things start to happen, and this is that in and of itself, the Habitat is a story. But I know we're going to cover a bunch of other things too. But
I mean, I think it's amazing that you bought a lot of real estate, you wrote 7 best-selling books, and you inspired like thousands of people across the country to get into real estate investing, and that's a big part of my story. So I really appreciate chatting with you, and for years hearing you on stage talk about the impacts, the macro environmental impacts that either guide us or dissuade us from maybe making business decisions is really what we're going to talk about here today.
Or freeze us.
Like
right now.
Yes.
During the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm going to date this recording, but during the pandemic, there's a lot of people just stopped.
Hopefully in 3 years, we're not watching this saying, oh, we're still in a pandemic.
I'm going to date this. This is only good for 3 years. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so let me ask you first question. So when we're looking at macro environmental factors, how do you look at these factors, and how does it impact your decision making when you're making a business decision?
Well, it depends on what's going on in the business. If it's a simple business decision that we think is going to be a 6-month window that's going to have an impact, then the macro is not as big of a play. Mm-hmm. But overall, demographics have got to play. You've got to look at who your target market is for your business. If you're trying to be everything to everybody, you're nothing to anybody, right? And you will see during the pandemic a lot of those businesses going out of business because they're trying to be everything to everybody.
Right.
So the macroeconomics, the demographics is my number one. The belief system of the general populace or my target market is number 2. So what do they believe is happening, or whether I believe that or
whether
not,
it's actually happening or not,
It's what is the languaging that's going on in my target market? Because then, as a marketer, because no matter what business you own, whether it's an automotive business or a book writing business or an education business like mine, you're really just in a marketing business. You're finding a way in which to plug your message into the right hole.
Yeah.
So the macroeconomics start to identify what languaging is going on.
Yeah.
Like if you're still using languaging around old gray hair guys like me, guess what? Then you're not going to probably connect with the next wave of your clients. Right. So your language has got to be different, and your targets. And what's great about the internet now is you can target demographics. Right. You can go listen for the people that are on Facebook or whatever the latest thing is. Don't want to date this. On Facebook, you can target your ads with that languaging to 18 to 34s. Right. And then old 50-year-old guys, you have different languaging, same sale, but different languaging. So that's demographics for sure. The belief, in the confidence of your clients, what they believe is happening, whether it's happening or not. Yeah. Another one that's really interesting is to see what the languaging is, and this is a macro for me, what my competition is telling the world. Right. And if you can, without being direct, because I don't like to be direct in my, I don't want to use the word attack either, but my approach. Yeah. If you can dissuade the people from believing the other messaging and saying that your message is the true one because you have the facts to back it up, whether you're selling sandwiches or an automotive, that is also a macro, is what your competition is doing. Yeah. So when we're looking at these factors, one thing that I've heard you speak a lot about is like the economic factors, like what is happening with, could be interest rates or what is the Canadian government in restricting financing at the time, or what are banks doing, what's happening with
transportation development, things like this. How important are these factors in long-term business decisions?
Oh, they're absolutely critical. The unfortunate thing is, as my friend and I were just talking about at lunchtime, is that we get too close to our businesses, and we're so in it that we miss the big factors that as the world's turning. By the way, it's not flat, right?
Right. As far as I know.
Last I heard, anyway. As the world is turning, we're still stuck in this place going, how are we going to increase our sales?
Right.
We're not adjusting to the economics. As the economics, so for instance, $1.9 trillion being poured into the U.S. economy, or $300 billion pouring into the Canadian economy over the next 12 months, that is going to affect the consumer. So if you have a consumer-focused product or service, then you need to understand that is a massive economic impact, and a stimulus that's going to impact your customer. So once again, the macro goes back to what your client or what your customer is thinking.
Right.
So if they're thinking, oh, great, I'm going to get free money.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go and do something. Like right now, you can get a mortgage at 0.9%. I've had them at 16. I've had them at 13. So 0.9, and people going, I'm going to wait until it drops. I'm going, oh my goodness. But understand that is affecting the mentality of your customer, and they're going to go, well, great. I will. If you're in the real estate game, I'm going to move and get a bigger place.
Yeah.
I can afford it, because everybody makes decisions based on what things cost on a monthly basis.
Right.
And whether you're selling coffee or whether luxury cars, it's all in that same macro. How are people feeling? Your job as a marketer, as a business owner, is to make the decision to say, I got to get in front of the wave. And that's something, Jarrett, you and I have talked about a lot in our past life.
Yeah.
And that is about getting in front of a wave instead of chasing a wave.
Yeah.
And you're a surfer. I'm not, because that would be embarrassing. But you're a surfer. You get in front of that wave and let the wave push you.
That's right. It's a whole lot less work, isn't it?
Oh, it's a whole lot work. And I see people take business decisions too late, or they go, I don't have the time to think about it, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. There's enough excuses. So you have to study the economy. Even if you hate reading the newspaper, at least read the business section,
right?
And start paying attention to not just your industry, because first off, you can steal ideas from other industries that you can then transfer into your restaurant business or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But also what's happening around the world, and what's happening in your region, and then what's happening in your province / state. Those things are critical to help you make the decision. If you're just listening to your friends as you're sitting around having a beer in the pub, and it's the same friends all the time, and it's the same opinions all the time, you know exactly what he's going to say when you say that.
Yeah.
Your business will eventually will struggle, and then will eventually fail.
Yeah. So I guess, in kind of one of your examples, people thinking of things and how much it costs them monthly. If my mortgage payment's going to go down because my interest rate drops, I now have more money, which means I might spend more money at coffee shops or on consumer goods.
Or a car. Or because the interest rates on cars have dropped.
Yes.
And it's like you have to put yourself in your customer's head, but I like to do it physically. Like, what are the conversations that are going on right now around the dining room table? What are the things that are going on? Like figure out if you're in lockdown and you're both working from home and you have a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's a 1-bedroom apartment because that's all you could afford before. That conversation is like, what are we doing here? We should look for a larger place.
Yeah.
And interest rates are down, and I think that we could probably pay the exact same amount today today in the future for a bigger place.
Well, one thing you said, that I've heard you say many times, is like this idea of micro condos, okay? Little tiny condos. I remember you pounding the drum, like, this is short term. There's no way that this kind of idea is going to last. And now here we are in a pandemic. People are desperate for more space.
Losing their mind.
They're losing their minds in their micro condos because they're working at home. And actually, when this pandemic started, Don, I remember thinking, he was right. He was right the whole time.
Finally, got one right. Yeah.
But you were looking at kind of, I think the environmental factors, like what is the long-term effects of living in 250 square feet in Gastown over, what do you do when you have a kid?
Yeah.
Or you get married or whatever.
Or life just happens.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is a lot of people make these decisions based on what's happening today, either in your business or your life, and I get that. I always like to, bit trite, but peel the onion and just keep thinking through. But you have to take the time to do that. And if you're too busy working, this is a stupid statement, and everybody uses it, in your business, not on your business, guess what? You will eventually hit a wall.
Right. Can you explain like what that means, in your business and on your business?
Oh, sure. Like, say, for instance, you're give me a business in one of these students'
shop.
So if you're the one who's the barista all the time, and you're the one who, well, listen, I can't afford to have somebody else. You will never afford to have somebody else, because you'll be constantly making coffee and constantly doing the cleaning and constantly doing the orders and then doing the payroll and then doing the stuff, that you never get those moments that I forced myself to do. As a matter of fact, I used to put it in my calendar. It's like, no, I'm not taking calls. I can't be in the business. I have to sit back away from the microphone. I have to sit back and look at the macro and how it's going to affect my business. I have to sit back and go, what are the things that we've been doing for 10 years that frankly are really easy but don't really work at the moment?
Right.
What are the things that other people in my industry are doing? Because if you're in it and you're serving coffee and you think the big breakthrough is that you finally got a new supplier for coffee that's going to save you 27 cents per cup, that isn't a big breakthrough.
Right.
It feels like a big breakthrough because you sell lots of coffee.
Yeah.
But once again, if you're in there doing it, you've just found yourself a job, not a business.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Are there specific trends that you see happening in the world right now that you think, oh, this is going to change the way we do business next year, in 5 or 10 years from now?
Well, I think so. For one, the demographics don't lie. And
so what about demographics is interesting to you?
What's interesting is that the cohort, the size of the kind of millennial group is the same size as the baby boomers.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, we're about dying off on the other end, but roughly they're about the same size. Ours is getting smaller.
Shrinking.
Ours is getting smaller. Yeah. But frankly, it's the same. So what you can do is just go back and look at historically what happened to that baby boomer crew. I think it was about 10 or 11 years ago when I said we are entering the era of protest. Because, frankly, it's because I look back at this big cohort that was pushing against the old guys, and I could see it coming.
Right.
And I don't know if anyone's noticed, recently there's been 1 or 2 protests on all sides of the political thing, and and we just haven't had the big one at the universities where people, like Kent University, when the people pushed back.
Right.
But it's not difficult to see. So now, to go back to demographics, this is really, really important to any business.
Yeah.
Is as people age, they change.
Yeah.
As they change their habits, they change their spending, they change their whatever it is. So, for instance, the S&P, the stock market, for instance, in the U.S. was so small and nominal until this baby boomer thing became into the consumer world.
Right.
And by the way, we invented disposable diapers. Terrible for the environment.
Yeah.
Fantastic for the parents.
Yeah.
We invented all the most of the fast food.
Yeah.
We invented all the stuff that's not great. We also spent, hey, don't throw it all on us. We invented some amazing things as well.
Yes.
But what we saw is it was just so big that it just changed everything.
Right.
The stock market went crazy because there's so much capital.
Yeah.
The economies grew, but businesses changed. If you can tell me a business that's, I don't know, Blockbuster, for instance, that's disappeared, there's millions of them.
Right.
Because they didn't see the change. They didn't see the demographic change or the technological change. And that's something that that your students are going to have to be on top of.
Yeah.
But it's only one factor. And that's really important that they understand that technology is a thing. Mm-hmm. But in order to have the thing, you need the people to come behind the thing and adopt the thing.
Right. One example I sometimes use in classrooms I think is really interesting. and I think I originally probably heard this from you, is
probably
like most things in my life, right? Is like when I used to live. We're in Yaletown right now. I used to live here in Yaletown. Yaletown was developed for I guess people who were young couples and who are maybe empty nesters, small condos, really nice. And then a bunch of people like me moved to town and we had babies and we didn't leave. And all of a sudden you got kids everywhere, and then there's like only one little school in Yaletown, and there's only a couple parks, and no one ever thought there would be thousands of kids living in this neighborhood, because when we had kids, we were supposed to move to the suburbs, but we wanted transportation, and we wanted to be able to walk to stores, and we wanted convenience and all this kind of stuff. We wanted to live where we worked, and you know, the planners of Yaletown didn't really think that was ever going to be a thing. But the demographic impact and the trend of what a millennial wanted was had a big impact on this community here.
Absolutely. And now you're seeing post-pandemic, you're seeing a lot of that vacating.
Right. Now we're flipping it.
Now the research is going, and just read research this what day is it today? Anyway,
today's Wednesday.
Wednesday. So it was Monday that I saw this research, the latest of the number of young families that are moving out of the Toronto downtown core and the Vancouver downtown core and the Ottawa downtown core out to the burbs. So they have spaces and they have school choices and they have a little bit more yard and park.
Yeah.
But that's inevitable, right? Because you know, you're raising your kids and you get to only so many people can live in a 2-bedroom condo, right? Yeah. And then you start bashing into each other.
Yeah.
So those trends are important to watch, even if you're a retailer. Like, frankly, if you're opening another coffee shop down here, well, Starbucks is closing some, so they've probably got some for lease. If you want. There's some space available.
Yeah.
But why not go to where, like, look at where the future is. Another trite quote, I'm awesome at them, go where the puck
I knew you were going to
be, not where it is. Yes. Like the old Gretzky thing. He says, how do you always get the puck? I just go where it's going to be.
Right.
But you only know where it's going to be by paying attention to the macros, by paying attention to the big waves.
Yeah.
You can ignore the little waves and let somebody make some money on those little waves.
Right.
Go for it. Don't have FOMO, but get in front of the next big wave, and it's quite remarkable.
So how do you prepare, or how do you get an understanding of what that wave is going to be?
Oh man, I'm a bit obsessive.
That's great.
But I always have been. Like even when I was running that business, and writing my books, I just find it so incredibly interesting. And frankly, incredibly profitable by paying attention to what do people want, and how do we provide it to them in a safe environment where it's within my value system,
right?
And how do I say no to things,
right?
That's another tough one,
right?
You know, especially in the marketing world and the small business world, saying yes to everything, it is easy. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll take $25 out of that deal because it's a coffee deal or whatever.
Right.
How do I do it? I read incessantly. I quickly find out who to trust in those worlds.
You're talking about journalists?
Journalists, economists, websites. Where do I go? And sometimes I just go right to the source of the data.
Right.
Like even if a stats can, because I've done it enough years, I know what statistics to look for. What are the indicators? The green arrows, red arrows, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it becomes automatic after it becomes automatic. So you're just constantly just doing your reading. Do not stick with the same stuff all the time. Do not just read stuff that supports your bias.
Right.
If you lean left, read right. If you lean right, read left. Right. Because your job is not to be political in your business. Your job is to look at the next wave.
Yeah.
Whatever that wave is.
Yeah.
And then service it.
How do we separate our political views, what we want to happen, from the opportunity that might be presented for us by maybe a party that we wouldn't have voted for, or a group that we don't necessarily support?
Well, first off, political wise, the politics is less of an impact on the business than the policy. So I always like to remove the politician.
Yeah.
Because you know how we all like the personality. That president or that prime minister or that guy, you know. I look at the policies, and those policies that once they get elected will go into place.
Right.
So how are they going to affect my business?
Right.
I can be political over on this side, and I can be support whoever I support, but in my business, I can't be blind to I can't get mad because this party actually got elected and actually did what they said they were going to do.
Right.
Even if I don't agree with them, they said, elect us and we're going to do this. They get elected. You need to shift your business and shift your mindset to say, well, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And you can be mad, and mad will get you broke. I'm telling you, because you'll just stand there and go, oh, I can't believe it. Throw toys out of your pram, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Be political if you feel that way. Understand that there will be a detriment to that.
Right.
Because once you're political in your business, then you attract some groups.
Oh, dear.
Microphones. Yeah. You attract some groups, and you will deter other groups.
Wow.
So think that through. Be political at the pub with your buddies.
Yeah.
Be political at a rally if you feel so inclined. But understand that there are unintended consequences to everything that we do.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, separating the politics from the policies.
Huge.
That's great. So one thing I've heard you talk about, whether you're on the news, being interviewed, whether it's in your books or on stage when you're presenting, is this idea of like looking behind the curtain. Like, what is behind the curtain? Can you kind of explain what that concept is and how that can help me as a business person?
It's kind of my shtick, right? And it became a shtick because that's what I do.
Right.
And that is... I used to do a presentation that was 45 minutes long every month, and it would be what's behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So we would look at news, we would look at headlines, we would look at political statements, we would look at demographics, and there's always this first level of perception of how this is going to play out, and oh my goodness, this is going to, we're all going to die, and all this kind of stuff. And what I trained my brain to do, and hopefully the tens of thousands of Canadians that have followed along, is to tap the brakes and go, okay, so that's what they're saying right now.
Right.
But what is really behind it? What is what is this tax policy actually going to do?
Yeah.
And how is it going to affect me? I may not like the answer to that question, but I still, as a business owner, have to adjust to it. And I can just stand and do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Get all angry. Can you believe the new capital gains tax on the da-da-da-da-da?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can believe it because now it's in place.
Right.
So I always look what's behind the curtain. So why are they doing this? Mm-hmm. And what are the ways in which these policies, because they always build back doors into these policies.
Right.
So you can keep looking behind that, oh, I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to vilify landlords.
Right.
So they're going to try and label landlords. Okay, well, I'm not a landlord.
Yeah.
Landlord is an old term from the UK. I'm a rental housing provider.
Right.
That's exactly what I do.
That's great.
And as a rental housing provider, what would I do? Well, as a rental housing provider, I look at each suite, each unit, as its own little coffee shop.
Right.
And how do I attract my target market to want that product and to never leave?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I have a coffee punch card for renters. But if I could, every month you get a punch, and then on the 13th one, you get it for free, something like that.
Yeah.
There are so many of those different policies. So looking behind the curtain means whatever the headline is, especially now with that, I will send detail. I sent a detailed article. It was a 20-minute read to 12 different people. 2 of them have read it. And these are intelligent, engaged friends.
Yeah.
But it says 20-minute read on this top.
Right.
People go, I'll save that for later. And never does later come.
Right.
But if it was three paragraphs long, I read it and they would have commented and probably even Facebooked it or something like that. Yes, us old guys still use Facebook. And so your job as a business owner is to go behind the curtain, get deeper in. Why do, like right now, I'm writing a new book. Oh, I guess I shouldn't say that. Anyway,
should we edit that out?
No, leave it in. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I don't have a deadline. And one of the chapters is why do conspiracy theories always double and treble in number during times of chaos?
Right.
And there's so much research out there. There's so much university research. Harvard's done a great job on it as well. And it is fascinating to see why. And you can go behind the curtain once again. And you can say, oh, okay, so that makes sense. So how does that affect my business?
Right.
It's really strange how the whole world is going I'm just making this up, this is not true, is going radically right, the whole world.
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, I may or may not like that, depending on your political view, but you're feeding families out of your business. So your business has to not go far right, but it has to understand what those people are thinking and what they're going to want.
And how can you offer value to those people?
That's exactly right. Without compromising your personal values. Right. And that's key. And there's lots of ways of doing that.
Yeah.
And sleeping at night and actually feeling pretty good about it, because once you're in there, if you're left and everyone's going far right and you're starting to attract not the violent far right, but the right thinking, then guess what happens is you have a chance to slowly impact them to bring them back towards your thought without doing the whole thing
grandstanding.
Yeah.
How much? So we're kind of understanding. So we really need to educate ourselves on what's happening in the world in order to make.
You need to stop.
So we stop. We read articles, newspapers. We read what economists are saying. But it seems like a lot of what we read, like those headlines, are there to attract our attention. But the headline may not be actually what the article is saying. Mm-hmm. So are you spending a lot of time then, kind of like actually reading the article, not just passing through the headline and getting into that last paragraph where the truth might be? And
you know what? The another part of the behind the curtain is the good journalists will say RBC's report on demographic change, and they'll put the name in it.
Yeah.
And then I'll just go search the actual data in the actual report.
Right.
Because now I'm getting it non-opinionized.
Right.
I have lots of friends in the media, and they've been told under no certain terms that we need you to have an opinion.
Interesting.
Because that gets more listeners, whether it's for or against, but it gets more listeners or more readers if you have an opinion. If you're just telling the facts, like my long 20-minute article, people will just skip over it. Yeah, whatever, And,
it's less interesting, isn't it?
So you have to understand that the majority of the media is also all media is a business.
Right.
And business needs customers.
Yeah.
So what they've done, think about this for a second, they've done is they've looked at the macroeconomics and how it's shifting towards everybody has an opinion and everybody has a wants to be a part, because that's what the Googles and everything has allowed us to do. So they are providing that outlet. And so if everybody has an opinion, let's have people phone in and we're going to wait for a second. We've got 4 minutes of commercials. Please wait. Look at our viewership. It's amazing. Anyway, back to, and think about that whole, it is about opinion.
Yeah.
But that's the current macro trend.
Yeah.
Is that everybody thinks they're right.
Right.
I enter most research, almost all research, considering myself wrong.
Right.
Always.
Okay.
And I'd never go into research with a thesis. I know it's kind of antithesis of what we teach here, but I may have a belief that I think that I know what it's going to do, but if I do that, then I will start looking at biased things and say, "Hey, see, told you."
Yeah.
And then I'll just post in a bunch of things that support my bias.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bias is not the biggest killer. Mismanagement is, but one of the biggest killers of businesses.
Wow.
You start to drink your own Kool-Aid, no pun
believe
intended.
your own thoughts,
Yeah, and then you find things that support it,
right?
And then you surround yourself with people who own small businesses who are just like you, who are also disappointed in the policies that came out. Yeah, how about that thing? That's a policy. That sucks. Yeah. And you never adapt because you've got a big enough circle around you who are patting you on the back going, you're so right, dude. And then 4 years later, you're done.
It makes it even more difficult because social media feeds us this bias so aggressively. It's hard to get away from it because, the social media world is feeding us what we want to read. And it starts to make us think everybody agrees with us because it's all we see.
But as a small business, think about the lesson in that is they found that they did the research. They saw the macro trends of people wanting to have an opinion and wanting to have a voice. And they also understand that people need to clan and people need to tribe.
Yeah.
And so they go, wait a minute, my job as a business, whether it's Facebook or whatever, is to have more eyeballs longer.
Yeah.
So I've done the research. I see this macro trend that people want opinions and they want to argue about them. And then if I tell them and then start surrounding them with more and more of the exact same opinion, they'll stay on, because people don't like to be told they're wrong.
Yeah.
So if every second article was the opposite of what you believed, you'd go, this stupid Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then you'd go
leave.
away and you wouldn't be on it as much.
Yeah.
But when we go there, we get these dopamine hits of, yeah, man, told you. And then we feel like we're in a tribe. And then we all start to comment, yeah, exactly. This XYZ is an idiot. Yeah, he is an idiot. And the policies suck.
Yeah.
All that time that you spend on there should be spent on hitting the pause button on your life and looking at your business and looking at the trends.
Yeah.
It is fun. I get it. I go on social media for fun, and frankly, it's like fishing sometimes. You just put out, oh, yep, there they are again. Yeah, it's kind of fun, depending on how I'm feeling and how much time I have on my hands. But it also always gives me a kind of a feeling of what's going on in the world.
Right. That's amazing. That's brilliant. Don, I really appreciate you coming to the studio today to do this interview. I think this has been really informative for us to understand, how our business decisions are really impacted by those macro environmental factors.
Well, I hope they help, because, I wish I knew this stuff when I started my business. It would have been a lot easier and a lot faster, and I wouldn't have as many gray hairs as I got.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Don.
Thank you. My pleasure.